Most billionaires become famous because they want attention. Larry Ellison became famous because the empire he built became too large to ignore. While the internet was busy watching louder tech founders fight on social media, Ellison was building something colder: software infrastructure, data infrastructure, media influence, and a wealth structure almost nobody understands. For one wild moment in September 2025, his fortune spiked so high that he briefly passed Elon Musk and became the richest person on Earth. But the real story is not the number. The real story is how someone who started with almost nothing built a machine where ownership, leverage, taxes, power, and timing all work together. This is not a simple founder story. This is not just build a product, sell it, get rich. That version is too clean. Ellison's version is much more aggressive. It is a story about selling before the product was perfect, surviving a near-death accounting crisis, holding stock like a weapon, borrowing against it, and expanding into the systems modern society depends on. So the question is not just, how did Larry Ellison get rich? The better question is, how did he build a structure that made extreme wealth keep expanding? To understand that machine, we have to go back before the island, before the AI data centers, before the media empire, and before the billionaire rankings. Because Larry Ellison did not begin as the owner of an empire. He began as a restless dropout who believed the normal path was too small for him. He was born in New York, raised in Chicago, and did not grow up with the smooth runway most people imagine when they hear tech billionaire. No trust fund, no perfect college resume, no elite founder myth polished from birth. He dropped out of college twice, then headed west chasing something he could not yet fully name. In 1966, he drove to California in a turquoise Thunderbird. It sounds cinematic now, but at the time it was just a young man heading toward an industry that had not yet become mythology. He bounced between programming jobs, not glamorous jobs, not founder of the century jobs, just technical work, corporate projects, and the slow accumulation of useful knowledge. Then he landed at Ampex, working on a database project for the CIA. The project's codename was Oracle. That name would later become one of the most powerful software brands on Earth. But first, Ellison needed a spark. The spark came from an IBM research paper by Edgar F. Codd. It described the relational database, a smarter way to organize information into tables that could be searched and connected. IBM had the research, but IBM moved like IBM, slow, careful, bureaucratic. Ellison saw the opportunity and moved like a predator. This is one of the first lessons in his story. Invention and commercialization are not the same skill. IBM discovered the door. Ellison ran through it. In 1977, Ellison and two partners started a company with only about $2,000 in capital. Ellison's own contribution was around $1,200. That is the absurd beginning, not a giant war chest, not a billion-dollar venture round. Just a small room, a big idea, and a founder with dangerous confidence. And Ellison's confidence was not quiet. He believed market share was war. He believed winning meant domination. He did not want to participate in enterprise software. He wanted to own it. The early Oracle product was not perfect. In fact, it had a reputation for being buggy. Developers joke that data went in, but did not always come out. But Ellison understood something uncomfortable about business. The best product does not always win first. The product that gets into the customer's hands, solves enough pain, and sells aggressively can survive long enough to improve. He even named the first commercial release version 2, because serious corporate customers were less likely to trust something labeled version 1. That sounds ridiculous. It also worked. Oracle got major customers, went public in 1986, and Ellison became rich. But the same aggression that built Oracle almost destroyed it. By the late 1980s, Oracle had momentum. Sales were rising. The story was working. But inside the machine, the pressure was becoming dangerous. Ellison pushed the sales culture hard, very hard. Sales teams were expected to grow fast, close deals, and keep the numbers moving upward. That kind of culture can produce growth. It can also produce shortcuts. And by 1990, the shortcuts became an accounting nightmare. Future software deliverables were being pulled into current numbers. Sales looked stronger than the underlying reality. The income statement was running ahead of the truth. Then the illusion cracked. Revenue fell. Earnings had to be restated. Lawsuits arrived. Oracle's stock got crushed. Ellison personally lost hundreds of millions. The company was close enough to disaster that people around Oracle understood this was not a normal bad quarter. This was survival. And this is where the story changes. Because a lot of founders love aggression when it works, then blame everyone else when it breaks. Ellison did something more brutal. He admitted the company needed discipline. Then he cleaned house. Senior executives were replaced. Financial controls were tightened. Operational experts came in. Oracle had to stop being just a sales war machine and become a real institution. Then came Oracle 7. Better product, stronger execution, more credibility. The company that almost collapsed rebuilt itself into an enterprise software fortress. That crisis mattered because it taught Ellison the difference between momentum and durability. Momentum makes you rich quickly. Durability keeps you rich after the storm hits. Oracle's real power was not that everyone loved its software. It was that once companies built their operations on Oracle databases, leaving became painful. This is the beautiful and terrifying thing about enterprise software. The product becomes infrastructure, and infrastructure is hard to rip out. Banks, airlines, governments, retailers, hospitals, large organizations do not casually change the systems holding their data together. That gave Oracle pricing power, staying power, and relevance. It was not sexy like consumer tech, it was deeper. It lived inside the plumbing, and for Ellison that meant one thing. His Oracle stock was not just stock. It was the central engine of his entire wealth machine. This is where the story stops being only about technology and becomes a finance masterclass. Most founders eventually cash out. They sell shares, diversify, pay taxes, and hand the money to professional managers. Ellison's path was different. He kept a massive direct stake in Oracle. That gave him something more valuable than cash: control. Control changes everything. When you own enough of the engine, you do not need to constantly sell pieces of it. You can let the engine keep working. And when Oracle bought back shares over time, the math became even more powerful. Fewer shares outstanding meant Ellison's percentage ownership could become even more concentrated. This is one of the hidden secrets of founder wealth. Sometimes you do not need to buy more. You just need the denominator to shrink. But holding stock creates another problem. If your fortune is locked inside shares, how do you spend billions without selling and triggering taxes? The answer is borrowing. Use appreciated stock as collateral. The bank lends cash, the founder keeps the shares. No sale has happened. This is not some secret illegal trick. It is a common feature of the tax system. Selling can create taxable gains. Borrowing generally creates debt, not taxable income. That difference is enormous when the numbers are measured in billions. A normal person thinks about income. A billionaire thinks about liquidity without liquidation. Public filings have shown Ellison pledging hundreds of millions of Oracle shares as collateral. That is not casual borrowing. That is empire-scale financing. The structure is simple but powerful. Hold the stock, borrow against it, invest the borrowed cash, let the assets grow, and keep the original ownership engine intact. This is the billionaire flywheel. The poor sell time for money. The middle class often sells labor for income. The ultra-rich borrow against appreciating assets. And Ellison did not only borrow to sit on cash. He bought hard assets, strategic assets, and status assets that expanded his world. In 2012, he bought nearly all of Lanai, one of Hawaii's islands. Not a beach house, not a resort stake, nearly the island. That purchase says something about his mindset. Ellison does not just like assets, he likes control surfaces, places where one owner can shape the system around the asset. He bought trophy real estate, he invested in land, he collected properties and projects that were not just expensive, but strategic extensions of power. This is where the normal idea of wealth breaks down. A millionaire buys things, a billionaire builds systems around things, and the tax structure makes the game even more interesting. In the United States, appreciated assets can receive a step-up in basis when inherited, depending on the estate situation. That means unrealized capital gains can sometimes disappear for income tax purposes at death, even if estate taxes and other rules still matter. So the incentive is clear. Do not sell the golden engine unless you absolutely have to. Borrow against it, control it, and let time do the compounding. This is the hard truth. Extreme wealth is often less about income and more about structure. Who owns the asset? Who controls the voting power? Who decides when or whether to sell? Ellison's empire is a case study in concentrated ownership. Concentration creates risk, but it also creates explosive upside when the underlying asset keeps rising. A diversified portfolio protects you from disaster. A concentrated position can create dynastic wealth. The problem is that it can also destroy you if the asset collapses. Ellison survived because Oracle did not collapse. It adapted, endured, acquired, expanded, and found itself at the center of one of the biggest technology waves in history. That wave is artificial intelligence, and AI does not just need software. It needs land, power, chips, cooling, data centers, and enterprise customers. This is why Oracle suddenly mattered in a new way. The AI boom turned cloud capacity into strategic infrastructure. In Abilene, Texas, Oracle became tied to one of the most ambitious AI infrastructure projects on the planet. Massive data centers built to feed the next generation of artificial intelligence. Think about what that means. The company Ellison built from a database idea now sits inside the physical supply chain of intelligence itself. And data centers are not websites. They are industrial machines. They consume huge amounts of electricity, require serious cooling, and turn computing power into geopolitical leverage. That is why Ellison's story feels bigger than software. He moved from selling databases to controlling pieces of the infrastructure behind finance, government, corporations, and AI. But the empire does not stop with data. It now reaches into media. Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison, built Skydance. And in 2025, Skydance completed its merger with Paramount, creating a new media giant. That deal brought together Paramount Pictures, CBS, Nickelodeon, MTV, Showtime, Paramount Plus, and a long list of brands that shape what millions of people watch. Now, connect the dots. Oracle sits in data infrastructure. The Ellison family sits closer to media infrastructure. One side stores and processes information. The other side shapes stories. That does not mean some cartoon villain is pressing a giant button in a dark room. The real world is more subtle than that. Power often looks like ownership, incentives, contracts, and access. And Ellison's story is powerful because it shows how modern empires are built quietly through those exact mechanisms. The old empire builder owned railroads, oil fields, newspapers, and banks. The modern empire builder owns cloud infrastructure, data pipelines, media assets, and concentrated stock. That is the real evolution. The tools changed. The strategy did not. Control the infrastructure, and you shape the rules around everyone using it. Ellison understood this early. He never seemed satisfied with being rich. He wanted arenas where winning meant control. This is why his personality matters. Ellison's ambition was not polite. He was combative, competitive, and often controversial. But he also understood that markets reward people who keep playing after near-death moments. Oracle almost died in 1990. Many companies never recover from that kind of credibility crisis. Oracle did, and that recovery became the foundation for everything that followed. Without that survival, there is no massive stock stake. Without the stock stake, there is no borrowing machine. Without the borrowing machine, the island, media, and AI empire look very different. That is why the story is not just about being aggressive. Aggression got Ellison into trouble. Discipline kept him alive. Ownership made him powerful. This is the balance most people miss. Billionaires are not simply reckless. The best ones are reckless in one phase and extremely structured in another. Ellison took huge risks early. Then he built structures that made those risks compound instead of disappear. That is the wealth blueprint. Create the asset, keep the asset, borrow against the asset, buy more assets, and let the original asset keep growing. It sounds simple. It is not easy. You need a world-class asset first. Without the asset, leverage is just debt with better branding. That is the warning. Borrowing against stock can create flexibility, but it also creates risk. If the stock falls hard enough, the structure can become fragile. So do not misunderstand the lesson. This is not debt is magic. The lesson is that debt attached to durable, appreciating assets behaves very differently from debt attached to consumption. Ellison's empire works because Oracle became durable. The borrowing works because the collateral has value. The flywheel works because the engine kept turning. Lesson 1. Ownership beats income. Income can make you comfortable. Ownership can make you powerful. Lesson 2. Control is a financial asset. Voting power, board influence, and strategic ownership can matter as much as cash. Lesson 3. Taxes shape behavior. The wealthy do not just ask, "How much did I make?" They ask, "How is it held? When is it realized? And what rules apply?" Lesson 4. Infrastructure is power. The deeper your product is embedded in other people's systems, the harder it is to replace. Lesson 5. Wealth is not only built by what you create, it is built by what you keep. That is why Ellison's story is so different from the startup fairy tale. He did not just build Oracle and walk away rich. He stayed attached to the engine for decades. He survived the crash, held the stake, used the stake, expanded the assets, then rode the AI wave into another level of wealth. The result is a modern empire that touches databases, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, land, media, and political influence. Whether you admire that or fear it, you have to understand it. Because this is how modern power is built, not always with armies, but with ownership stakes, contracts, servers, and leverage. Larry Ellison started with almost nothing, but he did not stay small because he understood something most people learn too late. The game is not just making money. The game is structuring money. He built the software. He kept the stock. He borrowed against the stock. He bought assets. He moved into infrastructure. And the machine kept expanding. So, what do you think? Is Larry Ellison's wealth flywheel one of the smartest structures in modern finance, or is it too much power concentrated around one family? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the story of the billionaire who built a $200 billion empire from almost nothing, then you'll love the story of the $10 trillion idea that changed investing. Click the video on your screen now. I'll see you there.